Welcome back to the newest episode of the Corporate Happiness Show. I'm Jacqueline Pirtle, and you can find me at FreakyHealer.com. And honestly, this show is all about how you can bring more happiness and well-being to the working world. But I like to be like the thinker out of the box, right? Like new ideas and whatnot. And that's why I'm super excited today, because we have Tony on the show. Tony and I met at the Entrepreneur Collab Center in Ybor in Tampa, and he's fun. He's very, very full of wisdom and of spark, and he has so much to share. So Tony, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for having me. So great to meet you. Obviously, I think it was your energy that drew me to you. So, and then obviously to kind of learn about everything that you're doing. Super honored to get a chance to be on your show and to talk a little bit over the next, 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, let's make it super long. We could probably talk for days and days. So we already had a little chat before the show, and I better up in my game because you are actually a professional TV star. And so I thought to myself, okay, I better be really behaved and do this really well. So tell us a little bit about what you do, something about you that you want your listeners to know about you.
Sure. First of all, I think you're a professional at this. So you're a natural communicator. You know how to connect the dots. You know how to relate with people. So I just want to give you your props because I think you're amazing. A little bit about me. I'm a meteorologist and storyteller. This is what I've been doing ever since I graduated from college, University of Florida and Mississippi State. Love weather. One of my other passions is storytelling. So I get a chance to kind of tell people stories, tell community stories, and just kind of go out of the four walls of the studio and meet people and tell the positive side of kind of what's going on in the area. And then something that some folks may know about me, some folks may not, is just kind of how much I'm passionate about fitness and wellness. Certified personal trainer for a number of years now, and lead group fitness classes throughout the city as well. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I mean, it all fits in with, bringing happiness to the workplace because, free pizza and a hammock or a ping pong table doesn't do it anymore. People are caring about value. And also, like, I feel like a lot of times it's like businesses say, well, how can we help the people be happier? And I'm like, actually, it's, they're already doing a lot in a free time, especially in, I feel like in Tampa, we live in a paradise and you can be outside. So you go already do things, but then that make you happy and it's well-being. But then you go to work, and if the work environment is not really so good, you can't make people happy because it's not sustainable, the happiness that they already bring. So how do you see happiness in the workplace? And I'm also curious what you think, since you love weather and you study weather, like about how that affects people and moods and whatnot.
Yeah, great point about the sustainability of kind of wellness, right? It's easy to be like, tons of folks love being outside here. They love taking out their boats. We've got, miles and miles of beaches. The weather's amazing, especially this time of the year. You see people play pickleball or soccer. I've got a group of friends that we play, which is a great outlet for a lot of people. But yeah, if you still dread going to work because the culture doesn't necessarily support that, I totally can see how that can be a little bit of a counterbalance. But weather does play a role in kind of how people feel. Obviously when it's bright, our body's circadian rhythm just kind of tells us that, we want to be outside. It kind of boosts our energy, as opposed to, when it's kind of cloudy or gray or gloomy. That sometimes can, not for all people, but it can kind of make people feel a little bit more down or a little bit less motivated to kind of be outside. So those are some of the things. Temperature obviously matters too. When it's hot, humid, which we all know in the summertime, maybe folks don't want to be outside, can cause irritability. And those are just some of the ways that the weather can kind of affect how we feel. Um, but but definitely an important conversation with wellness and the workplace, because sometimes the clash can make it difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so too. And really to take it, serious, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about productivity, because if your people are not well, it's going to be really hard. And so, which actually I want to catch on to what you said about mood and the weather and everything. So coming, because you have an interesting mix of what you do and what your passions are now into the fitness. So okay, somebody gets up, the weather is gray outside. I always say, because I work with energy, I always say it's an amazing opportunity to look outside and say, oh, it's gray. So I get to paint the sky today. Well,
Mm.
then go on a, visionary game playing or imaginary phase where you say, okay, I want it to be yellow today, and then to kind of feel how that is. So I always say children understand that you can color anything that's gray. Why not the weather? But going back to what you're doing is like, so what do you think from a movement perspective? Because exercise and fitness helps with that. So you get up in the morning, it's gray, and you're like, oh gosh, it's that mood, right? And whatnot. So what would you tell people to do from a movement perspective to kind of, get that into the shift of it's actually a great day, even though it's gray, right?
Yeah, and I think what you said is so important, because regardless of the circumstance, right? Regardless of what the weather is, we still, as human beings, we have control over the attitude that we put forward in our day. We've got the ability to, paint the sky, or paint how we
Yeah.
want the day to kind of look like. So I think that's important, regardless of sometimes how, we may be less motivated to go outside if it's kind of dreary or gloomy, or it's raining. I don't get a ton of days like that here, but I think movement is one of those things that you know I don't want to say can cure all, but can really really
Oh,
help
yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of boosting our mood, right? You think about how it promotes just kind of the endorphins that our body releases, and can energize us. There have been times, I can't tell you enough, Jacqueline, that maybe I've been kind of down, maybe I haven't been very motivated, maybe I've even been a little sick,
Yeah.
and I've been able to get like 20 to 30 minutes in of just moving around, jogging. Maybe something happened at work, or I'm going through something, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but I think just even if it's just stretching for a little bit, I think those types of things. And the other thing too is sometimes when it is kind of gray, folks can tend to kind of go towards their maybe habits that they get when they're a little sad or depressed. Maybe that's eating a certain type of way. Sometimes there's
Chocolate.
chocolates,
Yeah.
sometimes carbs can help people feel better, but um, it's trying to be a little bit cautious and aware of those things, and kind of redirect to more healthier foods and healthier ways to move and combat it if folks do tend to feel uh, the effects of the weather when it changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not getting up every day super happy either. It's like a
Mm.
habit that I created, and I stay with that habit. I have daily routines, what I do. And being outside and moving is so important for me. Like, I'm like, tired or something or whatever it is, and then I hop on my bicycle and it's just like, just start slow. It's okay. Yesterday you sped like a crazy woman up and down Bay Shore, but today just start slow. And while you're starting to think positive, you're feeling better and whatnot, and you're moving the energy. And like you say, you produce, really, really healthy, happy hormones inside of you, right? That take over and then make you feel good. So, what would you tell somebody that said, yeah, but Tony, I tell you what, because you're a personal trainer. You're my personal trainer, Tony. So I tell you, Tony, that's easy said, but I'm actually in pain.
Mm.
So you're saying, okay, move around, but what if I can't do this rigorous stuff that Jacqueline just set it up on a bike, 11 miles every day? What if I
Right.
have pain? Would you think that, gentle movement, you mentioned stretching, whatnot, would help as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think everyone's movement looks differently. You know, for some people, feeling better is moving heavy weights, right? And that's kind of where they would say, like, that's when I can conquer my day, is when I've got X amount of weight that I've got to push because this takes my mind off of what I'm dealing with,
Yeah.
right? For some people, that's the type of exercise they enjoy. For some folks, it's playing sports, team sports. They really thrive, and their energy really is boosted by that. But for folks who may have some pain, I think it's important to be able to kind of listen to your body. And obviously you don't want to aggravate pain, because then you may not be able to move. You'll be able to move even less. So right. So
Yeah.
obviously maybe consulting with a physician, someone who can kind of help advise on what those limits are. And even if it is kind of a low impact exercise like walking, right, or a bicycle is less strenuous than running,
Yeah.
and that's something a lot of folks are able to do for longer. Maybe it is mobility work like yoga or other forms of stretching. Maybe folks have pain when they do squats, but not so much when they take a dance class like Zumba.
Yeah.
I think there's so many options, the varieties of ways people can move, that there's likely something for someone, regardless what their challenges are.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, like movement is happiness. Movement means that your body works, your hormones, your juices, everything works. And so if you don't move, you're actually really doing yourself a disadvantage. If you're trying to become happy or healthy or feel better, movement is one of the really big parts. Because I mean, how many times how many times are you sitting at home thinking, like, wow, I just don't feel it so much. And then you're like, go outside, and within a couple minutes, maybe somebody smiles at you, maybe you hear the birds, maybe it's a raindrop on your nose or something, and you just kind of like feel already better. And then you stay out for 30 minutes and you have a complete different perspective on everything, and that helps you feel better too. So what do you think about how corporations, businesses, even small businesses, how they can bring what you're talking about, movement, whatnot, into the business? They can, yes, they can say, Tony, come help us. Well, you're going to go into that company. What would you even do with these people? How would you deal with that?
Sure. So there's so many ways that the corporations are trying to figure out wellness, right? Small companies maybe do a little bit different than larger companies, right? Places that I've worked at in the past have done things like fitness challenges or step challenges. Um, for some organizations, it's they've got this very relaxing lounge area. They allow their employees to have flexible schedules. um, Calling out sick isn't a hassle. Maybe there's um, access to resources, whether it's mental health or whatever that looks like. But movement is huge, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a little bit of time. Like one of the things that we did in my last job in Charlotte was, when the weather was nice, we'd just go outside and we'd have our meeting outside.
Oh, I
We
love
didn't
that.
necessarily have to move a lot, but it was just to change the scenery. It was the fresh air that you could easily tell how it kind of lifted people up. The kind of change of pace from the mundane, especially for people who work in an office. I think really anything that gets people to get their butt out of the chair,
I
you
know,
know,
just move. Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah,
so
because
so
we're
maybe
sitting too much.
way
We're
too
sitting too much, right? Way too
yeah,
much.
And then you think about what that does to your body. You get tight hamstrings, tight hip flexors. You start rounding your back, and overall all these things that tighten you up and lead to pain. And now you're adding stress and tension to your shoulders, and all of these things have a negative effect on us over time. So anything that we can do to promote movement, promote healthy movement, teach people how to move correctly. That
Yeah.
way they can incorporate some of these things into their daily habits as well. And I think one of the things that is key for these companies that do this is that more often their employees are less likely to experience burnout. They're less likely to be looking for another job. They're more likely to advocate for the company. So these things are beneficial mutually, right? Not just for the employee, but
Oh
also for the
yeah.
employer.
And I mean, it's like we should have done this segment standing actually. I'm sitting here
I
and
know,
saying
just
we're
sitting.
sitting too much, but anyway, next time. No, but what just came in is like, also like if companies really support the movement of people and whatnot, well, these people are going to take that habit home, and that
Yeah.
means they share it with their families, and most children are already like, like crazy tennis balls and whatnot. So to really catch on to that a little bit, and I think then that rolls over into private life, and then private life picks up in well feeling too, meaning that the people that come to your company are in better shape emotionally as well, because they don't worry so much about their family. So it's this, you
Mm.
give that support, it rolls over, and then it comes back to you too, because your people are gonna feel much better because they know at home there's a certain happiness there, there's a certain well feeling there. So it really is this circle where everyone really wins, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that sometimes is missing is like managers and leaders setting the example. It's
Yeah.
easy for companies to be like, here's a bunch of things you can do.
Yeah.
Here are, things we offer for the company. But when managers are kind of detached from it, it's I think the participation dwindles, right? As opposed to if you saw your manager doing the challenge with you, or
Yeah.
promoting healthy eating, or participating in this, you know, we're going to bike 100 miles in a month, whatever that is,
Yeah.
and everyone was kind of bought into that. I think that also helps,
Oh,
kind of promote
absolutely.
that
Well,
culture
it
as
sets the
well.
culture, it sets the
Yeah.
tone. We're a moving company,
Yeah.
So yeah. And I also think it's important that leadership is actually showing that they're taking time off to go work out.
Mm.
So, for instance, my cutoff is at 5 because I'm going to go work out. Now, if I have to
Hmm.
work a little bit less or finish afterwards, I will do that. But I'm leaving, or over lunch, or I'm coming to work an hour later because I actually did work out. And I think when leadership shows that, and it makes it okay, and you have to say it, it's okay, go work out, take that break and that time every day. And I think that's really, really important too, because I mean, a lot of people are like, well, when am I supposed to work out?
Mm.
Right?
And how many, how many companies would tell their staff, hey, cutoff is at 5 o'clock. That's it. I don't want you to do any work after 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not our society. That's not our culture.
Yeah.
It's work as hard as you can, as long as you can,
Yeah.
take as little breaks as you can. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's obviously not sustainable.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's not. And I think if you're listening to this, then you might as well be the brave one and take one for the team and say, that's what I need to do. And I'm not saying lose your job over it, but to take a stand, because I think a lot of times we also think it's not possible. But then when we try it and we do it, and we're like, well, that's what I need to do. Suddenly there's more than you. There's a bunch of you with your colleagues and what I'd say that's what we need to do. And then you actually are changing the culture with standing up and saying, this is what I need. Because some leaders may not even, they're so deep into the numbers and what needs to get done, and they're lost themselves. They go home, they have families too, right? And so I feel like if you're listening to that and that speaks to you, and you feel that that's actually what you need, to really take a stand for it and start it and say, this is from today on what I need, who's with me. Because I bet you that some companies, like I said, never even thought about that, or it's just, even though it makes sense, but it's just not even on their minds, right?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's everyone's got different priorities throughout the day. You're trying to maximize the amount of clients that you're able to see. You're trying to meet a certain quota, whether it's the nature of the economy or not. It's, do we see the long term benefits of this short term investment in ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to look at it like, oh, we're just moving, we're taking a break, and we're going to exercise, and maybe this is good for workplace culture, and but really it's so much more than that, right? It's the benefits for reducing anxiety and depression. It's how it prolongs or delays cognitive decline. It's how it prevents diseases like type 2 diabetes or cancers or certain heart
Yeah.
diseases. It's all of these bigger, large scale benefits. How we're able to move for longer, and move functionally for longer, um, and and it's how you set the tone in your company that makes you attractive as a place to work for.
And to stay too,
Hmm.
so you stay, it's not just a place that people pass through. It's
Yeah.
actually, I'm staying there. Because also when you're in a company like that and there's a hard time coming on, you're not just gonna leave. You know how they usually run, but right now we have to give it our all because of this issue or whatnot. But then we also know how it can go back again. I think you people will give whatever they can in a company where they're actually, their health is valued, and it's not just
Yeah.
mental health, it's physical health and everything, where people are really humanized and being people. So so you also do, in your TV career, you show lifestyle places and ideas, and you come up as a journalist with very, very out of the box thinking ways, and you go to their locations. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I really have, I think the best job in that not only do I get to talk about weather, which some we all kind of talk about anyways, and
I know.
it affects all of us, but I also get to spotlight um, organizations and companies and people that are doing really amazing things, right? Or it's just events that we're giving people a heads up on, but overall, it's really anything in the lifestyle realm, anything that's like happening, anything that has a decently large scale footprint, right? I was in Sarasota, did a story the other week in Sarasota about just how, you know, the county is encouraging, sustainable practices and helping people save money on their energy and utility bills, right? Something people may
Yeah,
not have known existed, but now they know that they can pick up these kits and have energy coaches come to their home, and especially for low income, energy burden families, um,
that's
just
incredible.
the
Yeah.
resources that are out there. Obviously, I've got to find them first, but
Yeah.
I think that's part of the fun of it. Is like everyone's doing something that's contributing to our overall society, and I just get the chance to be like, hey, look at this, look at what they're doing.
I love that. I love that. And it's all for the bigger picture. It
Hmm.
goes into the happiness thing, it goes into the well being of people, right? So I tell you what, one other thing is, like, it's a question that I had on my mind. I'm like, I'm going to ask that. So, you as a personal trainer, you give fitness classes
Yeah.
outside for
Yeah.
people. So how do you deal with that as, somebody that loves the weather, studies the weather, and gives people, the weather? How do you deal with that? So, okay, I'm speaking about the weather and I'm giving outside fitness classes. How do you balance that?
They're two very different things, aren't they?
Yeah, but I mean, if your fitness classes are outside and you're
Uh,
like looking at the weather, like, oh, it's about to rain or something or storm. Well, what are you doing the fitness classes anyway, or what do you do?
Usually, because, well, I'm trying to think. We haven't really run into this. Probably once or twice we've run into this issue, um, where the weather, maybe has canceled it because, especially summertime storms, you kind of know it's going
Yeah,
to rain at 5 o'clock.
it's like a pour
So
down.
it's just, do we miss it or is it cutting it close? But it's so brief that most of the time we're able to wait it out and still do the classes. Obviously, the heat can sometimes be an issue. We started this particular iteration of the class over the fall, so the weather was starting to cool down a little bit. We kind of got out of rainy season. So far it's been fantastic, and I teach at Curtis Hickson Park every Monday at 6 o'clock. It's a HIIT style class, so high intensity interval training, and it's a unique class. It's called Strong Nation for folks who are familiar with it. It's a basically a hit style class that's choreographed to music. So the folks that created
Ooh,
Zumba basically created this other concept where they engineer the music tailored to different tailored to the music. So every movement has a beat. So it's a lot of fun because it drives people through the workout without counting reps. And you're just moving the majority of the time.
I
And it's
love
just a
that.
high energy, fun class that I think a lot of people, even though I'm introducing them to all new people, because most people have never done it before,
Yeah,
because while it's international, it's not as popular yet. It's only been around maybe 6, 8 years or something like that. It's a class that is a blast to teach, and,
and do you
and
just show up, or do you have to, like, do you have a website where people say, I want to come, or how does that work?
sure. So we've gotten the word out through Tampa. So the class is through Tampa Downtown Partnership, and they do free classes 5 nights a week at the park at Curtis Dixon Park. So
Wow.
yeah, it's something people again may not have known about, especially
No,
folks that are just moving to town. But it's all part of making downtown this, you know, atmosphere where people can live, work, and play, and just kind of do it all. Obviously, there are gyms that throughout downtown as well, but these classes just kind of offer folks something different where they can be hanging out in the beautiful Curtis Dixon Park with all the tall buildings, the sunset, and everything, right? And take advantage of the space to get a workout in after work.
and what
So
time is it?
so the program itself, the partnership has classes 5 nights a week. Sundays is yoga, and they're all at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m.
Okay,
I
so it's
believe the yoga
possible,
is
yeah.
I believe the yoga is at 5 now because of daylight saving, but it'll be at 6. And then my hit is on Monday. Tuesdays is Zumba. Wednesdays is like a dance fitness type of class, and then Thursdays is Pilates. They're all free,
It's amazing.
um, and just a great way at the same time every day for folks to try out something different, maybe a different type of movement they haven't done before.
I love that. I love that. And if somebody wants to work with you as a personal trainer, or somebody wants to take, say, Tony, can you come into the company and, teach my people or educate us how we can be healthier and happier? How do they contact you? How does that work?
Sure. Easiest way is probably to reach me on social media. My Instagram is easy, just Tony Sadiku, Sadiku. You should have to spell it out for
Thank you.
folks.
Spelling that. Yeah, thank you.
And I've got a Facebook page, which is Fox 13's Tony Sadiku, but that's another way folks can reach me as well, or probably the easiest ways. I've got email and a website as well, but probably social media is the easiest way.
That's super. And then Can you, I asked you already that question once when we met, because to me, it's like when you said like, yeah, I studied the weather and I talk about the weather. And so how much work goes actually in really getting down to the gritty? Because I didn't know when you told me, I'm like, wow, so how do you study the weather, and how much, work goes into for you to actually tell the people about the weather?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people, may not know, the answer to that question. I think
I
it's
didn't. I didn't. That's
it,
why I asked you, and I'm like, wow, we better straighten that one out, right?
it's actually more challenging than people realize,
Mm-hmm.
because meteorology is an inexact science, right? We do our best. We've got a lot of technology now that we're able to use that gives us observation data, which then goes into models that gives us forecast data. So, you know, the easiest thing is just starting by understanding the patterns that we have, right? Depending on where, and it's been different depending where you forecast. But in Florida, we've got certain patterns in our climate that kind of help you kind of have a framework on what to expect. And then you you look at the data, you look at the models, you look at the profile of the atmosphere through what we call soundings, and you basically go from there and make your forecast decisions. But and the challenge is communication, right? The challenge is, okay, I've got 50% chance of rain. What does
Yeah.
that
What
mean to
What
the
does
average
that mean?
person? So
Yeah.
it's like and that's the fun part for me, because it kind of it frees you to be as creative as you want to be. There's no script. We've got no all we've got is 3 minutes talk about the weather. That's all
Yeah.
our producer tells us to do. So it kind of it gives us freedom to try our best to communicate to the public how this 50% chance of rain is going to affect them and their day and their plans and whatnot. So I hope that makes sense
Yeah.
generally, but that's kind of the process.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like when you told that to me when we met, I said, "So how does that even work?" Because I had no idea. And I think a lot of people don't have an idea. They just see you on TV telling them the weather, and they're like, "There's Tony, right?" But how much work and effort and
Right.
understanding, and studying actually goes into that? It's a science, right?
It is. And, I'd say most majority of meteorologists, you have a degree in meteorology. And then part of what you don't have a degree in is building graphics. And that's part
Yeah.
of your job too, is to use and build the graphics that help tell the weather story. And that, comes in, what is the weather story, right? What's going to impact the most people? What's most urgent, right?
Yeah.
And we really try to help people. And obviously, if it's a severe weather day or it's a hurricane or tornado or whatever, then that the messaging shifts, right, from maybe a you know very positive, upbeat, going to be a great day to be outside, to folks that want you to be prepared for potentially life threatening weather. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And you got two Emmy nominations with your weather work. And I just want to highlight that. So you absolutely know what you're doing. And thank you for that, because that's how you keep people safe too.
No, I appreciate it. It's in this business, in this day and age, it takes a viewership, right? So I appreciate folks for trusting me and opening up their homes to me to give me the privilege to do what I enjoy doing. It wouldn't be possible without the support of others, and Tampa's been so welcoming since I've been here. So I'm super
It's
grateful.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So how did your fitness journey start? Were you always like just in love with it and was a passion, or was there something that made it start and you said, "Okay, that's it. I'm going to really want to do that"? Because I also like, if you want to tell us a little bit about your future, what you're about to do and everything
Yeah.
about with fitness, because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it is kind of random because it's almost I don't want to say two totally different sciences, but kind of is, and it was never my intention to go into fitness, although I was kind of on a healthcare trajectory, and how I ended up in meteorology is a whole other story. Just kind of stumbled into it, But once I was a meteorologist and working in Fort Myers, mind you, I'd always enjoyed being active. I grew up playing soccer. I really picked up resistance training in college, and for me, it was my kind of outlet. It helped me, especially to deal with my autoimmune Crohn's and just kind of help keep stress down. So for me, it was just like this is something I have seen the benefits and what it's done for me.
Yeah.
And then when I was down in Fort Myers, I met someone that was starting a gym, and they were looking for people to train. And I was not a certified trainer, but I was like, oh, this would be fun. So I just gave it a shot. And long story short, the more I did it and the more that I worked with people, the more I got addicted to um, seeing people through their journey and seeing them make progress, and became certified through that time. And and I've worked with so many people with so many different stories of why they want to get into this journey. Cancer survivors, working
Yeah.
moms, kids that are training for sports. And in every single scenario, it's amazing what the human body can do.
Right.
And
We
it's
always think it's a limit, but actually that's
yeah,
not even the limit, right?
not at all,
Not at
and
all.
sometimes you
Yeah.
just need someone to be there to help you kind of come up with a plan and see you through and hold you accountable. um, and it makes all the difference. It's made, and it's amazing to see people that have started it for one reason and then fall in love with it, and then
Yeah.
fall
Right.
and then fall in love with fitness and health, wellness, and then can almost, and then their lives are so inspiring that they encourage someone else.
Yeah. It like starts out with a have to, and then it's like I want to. It's
Exactly.
like it changes, it shifts. And I also think when you said like, help somebody that helps them, be accountable and all that, I also think it's like a lot of people really think this is my limit.
Mm,
I see this in my energetic work all the time. It's that man-made ceiling that they're making, and they're thinking that's it. And it's like, actually, no, 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 no. It's just like, and somebody, especially in the physical education and physical wellness, like you can tell people that's actually not your limit. It just feels
sure.
like it, but stick with me, stick with this, and you'll see. And then just within a week or so they're like, wait a minute, my that's not my limit. I actually just broke the ceiling, right?
That's huge, right? Because I think we all need people. We all need each other.
Yeah.
The simple encouragement, right, goes a long way in helping people see a vision that they didn't see before for whatever reason,
Yeah.
right? Maybe they, working on their own, it's like, I don't know how to get over this hump, but being there makes a tremendous difference. And then the other thing that kind of made me think of is just how impactful being able to move helps us out, right? Um, you think about all the ways that we that we that we move, and just how sometimes it's not necessarily the destination, but it's how others can kind of support us. And when you see yourself through the challenge of movement, how much more can you see yourself through another challenge in life?
Oh
Right. So
yeah.
that becomes kind of the battlefield of like, hey, I just proved myself that I could conquer that challenge. So
Yeah.
sure, I can conquer this challenge I'm dealing with at work or in my
Yeah.
relationship or whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you think about it, life is all about movement. Everything is always constantly changing. It's never the same. What we're talking, it's not even true anymore because we already moved on. And it's like, I'm always saying you're this ever changing energetic cloud, that's moving through life. And it's movement. So if you're actually moving your body, that means you're in the movement, in the flow of real life, versus
Mm,
when you're not moving, you're actually kind of, you know, pushing against what life naturally is, which is always
mm,
moving. Does that mean you always have to move? No, but I mean, even when you're breathing, you're moving, you know, to just become aware how movement is actually the natural flow of you, the natural flow of
mm.
life, and what you're here to do. You're supposed to be moving your physical body, your emotions, your thought processes, everything. Your movement is so important in every way. That's the flow of life. I look at it that way. And who doesn't want to be in the flow of life? I do. So it
No,
feels good.
seriously, there's so much research that proves all of this, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you hear the phrases movement is medicine or motion is lotion. It just
Yeah.
the more we move, the longer we're able to move how we want to move,
Yeah.
you know. And that's just goes to the flow of life that you're talking about, you
Yeah,
know.
no, I love it. I love it. So we're actually at the end. We're taking this really good long, Tony, but I could talk for hours with you because there's just so much like life wisdom in there, and also
Mhm.
educational. I always learn from you, you know, just look at like, you know, about the weather and everything and how much it takes, and the effort you're putting in. So you're doing things that are like, in some way you said they're different, but they're very similar. It all flows
Mm.
together, and you're like the connector of all of this, which is Tony. I love that. So where can people find you? Maybe say that again.
Sure. First of all, I appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun. I know we talked about doing this, so it's such an honor to be on your show. Folks can find me on social media, Tony Sadiku on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook as well, Fox13's Tony Sadiku. And my email is just sadikutony@gmail.com.
Excellent. And I mean, listen, listeners, connect with Tony. He's always happy to chat, and follow his shows and all his work that he's doing, because I really think for the bigger picture, you're amazing. You're brilliant. You're amazing. And from the moment when we met, I thought like, wow, this person is just like, you better follow this person, because there's really, really great stuff that you're doing. So thank you for being you and for what you do, Tony. Thanks. And thank you for being on the show.
You're too kind, and your light and your energy just takes over a room. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. And to all the listeners, I hope that you got a lot out of this conversation. So go out there, move. Just, you know, even if it's in the middle of the night, stay safe, but go and move and watch Tony wherever he goes and his stories. And I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.